tell me if you can hear me okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 13th. We're starting around 5:35 p.m. Rachel, could you please take roll?
Yes, Joe Greer,
Present.
Dom Gelsomino, Autumn Short,
Present.
Jennifer Bobo,
Present.
Camden Hyde,
Present.
Keith Bevan,
Present.
John Nesmith is absent, Albert Kang,
Present.
Jessica West, we can see her, but we can't hear her, and Council Member Jessica Perot is absent.
Next, we need to have an adoption of the agenda.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion for the adoption of tonight's agenda.
Give it a second. All in favor?
Madam President, I
Aye.
will second the agenda. So,
Any opposed? Okay, the adoption is accepted. Next, we need approval of the minutes for the December 9th, 2020 regular meeting.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the December 9, 2020 regular meeting.
Second the motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have no announcements. We have no old business, but we do have some new business.
Come up front for this one. We want to take just a moment and recognize and thank our outgoing past president, Dom Gelsomino. Dom, we are grateful for your service, for your leadership, for everything that you've done to help move the Parks and Recreation Commission forward over this past year while you've been president. So we want to say thank you. I have here for you a couple of different items. The first is a certificate of appreciation. Trying to figure out how to, there's not a good camera on this. Or, what's that? Sure, I'm going to switch locations so that I can just put it on for everyone to see better. Hang on. Hello, can you hear me now? Okay. So I do have this certificate of appreciation for President Dom Gelsomino. It says, in recognition of valuable contributions serving as president on the Meridian Parks and Recreation Commission, your outstanding efforts are appreciated, and it's signed by myself, our council liaison from last year, Brad Hoagland, and the mayor, Robert Simison. In addition, we do have this plaque that I'd like to show everyone that says, presented to Dom Gelsomino, President, Meridian Parks and Recreation Commission, January through December of 2020, with gratitude for your dedication and hard work. So, Dom, maybe you can come down and Rachel can snap a quick picture. can turn the microphone over to Dom just to say a word when he gets back to his chair. But thank you, Madam President. That is my presentation.
Madam President, a moment to just extend my appreciation. I want to thank the commission, Steve, all the commissioners for the trust in me that you placed over the last year. You know, 2020 was one heck of a year, and honestly, it took a good word from Steve and a good phone call from Steve to help me realize that even though it seemed like not a lot was done last year because of the pandemic, that instead there was a lot that we accomplished as a commission, despite the challenging year that we had. And for that, I want to thank Parks Department for their incredible acrobatics in accommodating and facing the challenges of last year. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to have served as president for last year, and I'm looking forward to hopefully a better year this year.
I would just like to add that with it being such an unusual year, the most unusual that I've seen, you know, in times of adversity, that's when you see a person's true character, and yours is impeccable. So you did a great job. You actually had to step up a little bit more.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I will say I did have a moment of nostalgia, especially when Shelley posted it on Facebook for not being the Grinch last year. That was a heartbreaker.
Anybody else have anything? Am I now off mute? Am I back? So can you hear me, but the rest of can everyone hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, very good. Okay, moving along. So we have the Meridian Parks and Rec Department annual report that will be presented by Shelley Houston.
Hello, commissioners. How are you? Oh, would it be so cliche to say, can everybody hear me? Can you hear me now? I'm going to guess yes, unless you jump up and down and wave your arms. Like we kind of hinted at a moment ago, it would be very easy to write 2020 off as a dirty, rotten, no good year. But I wanted to dispel that thought. Yes, there were aspects of it that were very hard and challenging and disappointing. And I think my coworkers and we all cried on Zoom at least once or twice during the last year. But we've had more happiness than tears, that's for sure. And so I want to kind of reiterate some of the highlights of the year as we kind of look and review. These are things that are also included in the annual report that Steve sent you a link to that's posted on our Parks and Rec website. As we get into the year in review, the first thing we have to talk about is our leadership. And certainly Steve Sidaway and Mike Barton and Roger Norberg and Garrett White, go ahead, you advance a slide. They all really stepped up this year. Steve reminded us that sometimes it's easy to get so busy that we forget to take care of our health and well-being. And he kind of reiterated our commitment to ensuring that our residents have plenty of opportunities to stay healthy and fit, build relationships with family and friends, and develop a sense of community. In fact, back in July, we celebrated National Parks and Recreation Month with the theme, "We are Parks and Recreation." And so it's not just something we do. It's not just our job from 8 to 5. We are Parks and Recreation. It's in our blood. It's in our soul. We work so others can play, and that's just fine with us. So part of the annual report, you'll see, you can turn another page, is a tribute to that leadership. And This year, more than any, Parks and Recreation has really been recognized as being more important than ever. In fact, there was a study, it's an engagement with Parks report that was done by the National Parks Association, and they came up with some key findings. And they found that throughout this year, people visited parks more than twice a month on average, and some even weekly. 3 in 5 people visited a park or trail or open space during the first 3 months of the pandemic, when a lot of people were really hunkered down and we were also uncertain about what this coronavirus really meant. 77% of adults considered parks to be very important when they're choosing a place to live. And we'll see that later in Meridian being chosen as one of the top places to live in the entire nation. 4 out of 5 people agree that Parks and Rec is an essential local government service. And 72% of adults are more likely, they say, to vote for candidates who support and fund parks and recreation activities. So we thought it was important to highlight those findings from the engagement report from this year. You can turn the page. We're also, of course, eternally grateful for you, our commissioners, for the mayor and council, for our council liaison. As we heard, Brad Hoagland was our liaison last year. And just now with the new calendar year, Jessica Perot will be our new council liaison. And then the staff, they've really stepped up and just done what it takes to get jobs done, to cross train, to support one another. So we're thankful for all those folks. You can turn the page. We've really focused on our 3 key value areas of quality, community, and fun in the annual report. And so under quality, we kind of focused on physical things we accomplished, our new amenities and whatnot. The Heroes Park parking expansion project, all the plan is in place, and we just got to wait for the weather and the timing to be right. So probably next spring, in between the youth sports activities, we're going to get in there and have a smarter, more efficient, effective parking situation created. So we're just waiting for that. I don't know if you've been back to the community garden in behind Kleiner Park. The garden itself is wonderful, but now they have a new pollinator garden where they're educating the public about the importance of pollinators, bees and hummingbirds and insects and those things that flit from flower to plant to pollinate. And so there's all sorts of plants and flowers and then interpretive panels that educate. So I encourage you to go back there and take a peek. I know it's probably not much action this time of year, but later this spring, it'll be in its full glory. We also changed out the lighting on the ball fields, especially out in Discovery Park, with new LED efficient lights. And so that's been a win-win for all of us in terms of the lighting situation, how happy the neighbors are with us, and our energy consumption. Matt Perkins, our relatively new city arborist, is killing it on his urban forestry. He's working on a new master plan for the urban forestry activities. He's got a new system of a tree plot or inventory that's going to be even more detailed than ever. And he's working on a self-guided tree walk, which people will be able to literally go onto the website and walk through the Kleiner Park Arboretum and learn about the trees they're seeing there. He's also trying to find a way to save Arbor Day. It got a little interrupted this spring, but we're hoping he'll be able to do something soon. So he's got some ideas for that. Go ahead to the next page. We also did some playground resurfacing out at around the City of Rocks, which is part of the Adventure Island playground at Settlers Park. It had just weather and time had worn away the floor surfacing. So it's a new kind of bonded rubber softball material that's very impressive. We have a beautiful new outdoor gym at Kleiner Park that was a collaboration with the Meridian, the mayor's senior advisory board. And so it's purposely located in Kleiner Park and relatively close to the senior center and the Story Walk. And it's getting some good use. It did in the fall, and then now maybe not so much. Maybe on a blue sky day like today, though. The Meridian Home Course also celebrated several improvements. The flooring got resurfaced. It was time for that. The curtains got repaired, a lot of deep cleaning and just some real work that needed to be done. And then we successfully used Bay 5, our new multi-purpose space, for classes and activities. And then planning is well underway for a potential new community center on the civic block downtown, which will replace the current Meridian Community Center. And so a lot of our staff members are working on that project collaboratively with others. Next page. We have Dom and Internet Mountain Pet Hospital to thank for some new water spray features at the Discovery Dog Park. There's one on both the small dog and the large dog size. You can see a picture there with a little rainbow. The dogs love that. It's kind of interactive. And then, of course, we have the new public art installations in Renaissance and Champion Parks. Although we didn't get to have an on-site celebration, we're trying to put a little spotlight on them as well. Next. There's a big feature article in the annual report about pathways. Kim Warren and Mike Barton and those who work on pathways have really made progress. Some segments have been completed, some sidewalk widenings. There's some new rest areas and trail hubs that we're experimenting with that are going to be just dynamite. And right now we're kind of taking a pause for the weather, which is understandable, but planning continues. Kim's working on, she has at least 14 future projects identified and 3 different consultant groups that are working with her to keep the ball moving even during this kind of dormant weather time. So really our pathways have been a real bright spot of the season. Next. When we talk about community, we kind of think about collaborations and what we've been able to do to engage others. Classes, camps, and workshops, a lot got canceled, but a lot didn't. We did a whole summer camp. We have lots of classes that we're able to go. And even now we're holding some classes that can keep small sizes, not a lot of shared materials, and kind of follow some COVID distancing protocols. And then our activity guide went virtual, and we're bringing the design in-house. So we're saving a lot of money, which is always a good thing. The arts and culture is going great with Audrey Belknap at the helm. We have 10 new traffic boxes that are wrapped around town that you'll probably notice. There's an inventory of them on the website if you want to see. For the first time, we had big leaf collection bins in 10 city parks, and that was a partnership with Republic Services. And people really ate that up. They just, man, even the first few days, they were in danger of being filled, but they got their stride, and people really used those well during the month of November. And of course, we unveiled a beautiful bronze firefighter sculpture by Daniel Borup out at the new fire station number 6. That was one of our events right at the front edge of the pandemic. I think we squeaked that one in. Okay, next. Next page. We had our holiday classic volleyball and cornhole tournaments at the home court. Can you get the page turned? There. Oh, back one. There you go. So, and those were our tournaments that raised money so we could buy gifts for the little preschoolers from Meridian's Head Start program. So we were able to buy gifts for like 60 kids, clothing and toys and things they really needed, shoes and boots. So that was very satisfying. We also, right on the cusp of quarantine, we were able to sneak in an open house at the Meridian Home Court to show off its improvements. It was on Valentine's Day, February 14th. So just about a month before operations really slowed down. We were still able to help our VFW and American Legion men and women with Memorial Day and Veterans Day events at Kleiner Park. And we live streamed them for those that weren't comfortable attending in person. So they were kind of hybrid, in person and virtual. And I suspect we'll continue doing that again this year. And then Rake Up Meridian, again, was very successful. We had 60 teams of volunteers rake and clean up the yards of at least 170 seniors and people with physical disabilities. So that was satisfying. Okay, next page. City of Meridian enters the golf game. On November 9th, we became the proud parents of the new golf course. And so that was a transition that went remarkably smoothly. It's a process, not an event, but technically there's been a changeover. And so we are now the operators and maintainers of the golf course. We've got lots of professionals assisting us and consultants, and we'll be working on evaluating the state of all aspects of the course and coming up with a plan for its future. And so everyone's watching and listening with bated breath. Okay, next page. Our other value, of course, is fun. And while several large events got squelched this year, we pivoted and were able to do a lot of things. The Meridian Main Street Market took place on May 23rd through October 17th. With social distancing, they spread out the footprint and had some protocols in place. And I think we're on track to have it again, starting up again this spring. So that's a good news. So we hope to grow that. We did an online virtual challenge for people to run, walk, bike, and swim. And we had new sports leagues, specifically in cornhole, and new disc golf tournaments, even one on Halloween where people wore costumes, which were really well attended. And Skylar's got another cornhole tournament coming up later this month that has attracted 40 two-person teams. So he is cooking and booking with sports. And Meridian Art Week knocked it out of the park. Rather than big crowded events, we had smaller events that family groups could participate in, and some virtual activities, and the virtual art, the art drop, which is always popular. Next page. We planned a way for families to hold their own little backyard camp out, and gave them materials, songs and stories and recipes and things they could use to plan it. It hit right when the fire smoky season hit. So I don't know if a lot of families ended up doing it because the air quality was so bad, but it's one that's ready to go again for this summer. We'll probably pull it out of our hat again and do it. And then in the fall, we had a door decorating contest and an autumn themed scavenger hunt for the young kids. And in the same way we innovated for fall, we'll be innovating for spring. We already have some kind of heart and love and Valentine themed ideas up our sleeve. I don't want to spill the beans yet, but ... Stay tuned. Okay, next page. We also had some good people news. We celebrated Phil Harris, who's on our parks crew. He earned one of the very prestigious Meridian Way coins, and for his adherence to the city values and going above and beyond in everything he does. And then Elroy Huff, our city arborist of 20 years, retired. And you can see there in that photo, we created a plaque made out of a tree that we had to kind of say goodbye to in Centennial Park because it had some health issues. But we were able to salvage the wood, and it really meant something to Elroy to have a plaque made from the wood of that tree. Next page. And then at the Idaho Recreation and Parks Association big meeting up in Post Falls, Discovery Park was awarded the Outstanding Park or Facility Award, and Craig Steele was given a award of merit for his service on the Parks and Rec Commission. So we had 2 IRPA awards, and then Craig was also the Legacy Award winner for the mayor for the State of the City address this year. So he went out in a blaze of glory, and so hopefully we gave him his due. Next. As I mentioned, Meridian was named in Money Magazine's 2020 Best Places to Live list. We were number 3. So I don't know, I can't remember who the 2 boogers were who beat us, but we were number 3, and so we'll take that. Those aren't something we apply for or seek. We're as shocked as anyone when our name shows up on the list. But our high quality parks and the open spaces, that contributes a lot to the quality of life, which helps us get noticed in these sorts of things. Okay, next page. I want to focus a little bit on how Parks and Rec saved Christmas. If I do say so myself, we hit it out of the park. We really were able to, despite not having our parade and our big tree lighting, celebration and our big children's festival, we did it upright. We had a virtual Christmas tree lighting broadcast on Facebook Live from Generations Plaza. I just found out once they just undecorated the big old tree, there was 5.7 miles of light strands, and that was 88,000 LED lights. So it was a huge tree, and just everyone couldn't get over how beautiful it was this year. We handed out 500 Winterland in the Bag little kitty craft kits full of crafts and games and treats to children. It was a drive-by event at the community center. We had our first ever Meridian Ornament drop, where it was kind of a game of hide and seek with ornaments in downtown Meridian. People loved it. So I assume we'll do it again. 439 kids or families were able to meet with Santa virtually on our Zoom with Santa program. And it took a lot of time and effort. And I think we burned through 5 Santas because they kept having health issues or excuses why they couldn't make theirs. But no one went without, and we always found a professional Santa. So we got those Zoom with Santa sessions in. The downtown decorating contest happened. And then this year we created an interactive Christmas lights map with 47 families identified their homes as being particularly razzly dazzly. And so nearly 5,000 people went and took a look at that. We replied to almost 1,400 letters to Santa, personal replies without volunteers. So our staff really stepped up and helped. Like I said, we purchased the gifts for the Head Start preschoolers. In all, there are about 626 gifts we purchased and wrapped. We had our Salvation Army angel tree in the City Hall lobby and one over at the Park Shop. And even despite the fact that our building was closed, honest to goodness, we collected an entire pickup truck full of toys, including bicycles and helmets. It was stunning. And Christmas in the library, was at the little free library all summer. Can you go? I got some pictures. Go ahead to the next page. You can see the little boy at the little Santa's mailbox, and that was Santa Mac and his wife. They were good sports. They had cheat sheets about each kid, so they knew the names of the pets or their favorite subject in school, so they could really act like they knew and recognized the kids they were talking to. You can see the winner down below of the decorating contest. And then there's Joe Greer dressed in her little elf costume, handing out our Winterland gift bags. Thank you, Joe. Next. There's a little girl, you can't see it, but she's holding up an ornament that she found. She was so proud of that ornament at the ornament drop. There's our volunteer Rose holding up some baby dolls and a little, I think it was a little miniature shopping cart, if I remember, that were part of the gifts that we were purchasing at Walmart for the Head Start preschoolers. Oh, down the lower left, you see all that big mound of toys. Those were all the donations of games and puzzles and soccer balls and Play-Doh and art kits and musical instruments that we collected for the Salvation Army for their Angel Tree program. And there you can see Steve and I think Garrett and Skylar were helping him load his truck with all the goodies. Okay, next page. So even though 2020, it got weird. Oh yes, it did. We would hold it. It was really a marvelous year. And we just got a few beauty shots. Let's pedal through. There's the amphitheater in the fall in Kleiner Park. Okay. These people were during Art Week. That was how they did a line dancing class on the basketball court at Centennial Park. Very creative, social distancing. Like I say, we had Halloween costumed disc golfers in Kleiner Park on Halloween Day, which was very cute. The parks looked fantastic. I personally photographed every single park this year, and I couldn't find a weed or a dandelion. It was amazing. That's Renaissance Park. Even the older folks got out and enjoyed the park. These guys were zooming through Kleiner Park, and they stopped to flirt with me and even gave me, they offered me a candy bar, and I accepted, and it was good. It was a Snickers. Next. Well, again, people really found ways to social distance or spend time with family. And I think they really enjoyed the peace and serenity that our parks offered. That, of course, is the Kleiner Park Pond and some boys fishing. That I took in the Pollinator Garden. Just want to remind you to really, once the season gets started and the warm weather comes and things start to bloom, really go pay it a visit. It's lovely. Oh, this is just a nice beauty shot of oh my gosh, Champion Park, right? Help me out here.
Heroes.
Heroes. I was going, are they champions? They're Heroes Park. I'm sorry. That's the Journey of Heroes art installation. Of course it is. Heroes Park. Okay, next. Oh, and again, even as the weather started to turn, people were still out. These were, I think, a guy and a gal were just quietly fishing together at Kleiner. This was a little girl doing a little art project at Art Week in front of City Hall Plaza outdoors, socially distanced. Ooh, caught a double rainbow at Kleiner Park one day. So pretty. Oh, and even the woofers had fun at Storybark Park. This old guy was taking a break up on one of the agility items. People were out playing pickleball. They still are, even out in the rain. I noticed at Settlers Park today. This is out at Rita Husky Park. And this little one was during the summer. This is Discovery Park. She was digging the little water feature. So, oh, best picture ever. This is what makes us happy. Someone taped this sign up in one of our bathrooms. Cleanest park bathroom I've ever seen. Awesome. So anyway, just these little bits of happiness really make us feel good and remind us about the importance of what we do and the pride we take in our work. So we are Parks and Recreation and dang proud of it. And it wasn't such a dirty, rotten, filthy year after all. And I just proved it. That's it. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
I feel like we should have an applause for that. Well, thank you, Shelley. I particularly enjoyed the annual report, and since we got to preview it, I kind of knew it was coming. But
You're very
of course-
welcome.
Of course, it's always more fun when you are when you're.
It was
going through
it was a good year. We got a lot accomplished despite the
Yes.
challenges.
It was, and that's a positive thing to hear.
Good.
Okay, so next we have ethics and open meeting laws update with Emily Kane.
Hello, Rachel. May I share my screen? Will that work for me?
Sure.
All right, let's try it. Did it work?
It did.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Shelley's a really tough act to follow, so my presentation contains no fun photographs, but I think this is, well, I don't think it definitely is important information for you to have. So thank you for having me. Of course, I'm here to talk to you about open meetings law and governmental ethics. What is the open meetings law? Many of you have heard this before, but Title 74 of Idaho Code is the Transparent and Ethical Government Act. Chapter 2 of that title is the Open Meetings Law. And the purpose of the Transparent and Ethical Government Act, and specifically the Open Meetings Law, is that the people created the government, and as it says, the people do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies they created. So the formation of public policy, which is something that the commission does, is public business and can't be conducted in secret. It all needs to happen on the open record. Does the open meeting law apply to the Meridian Parks and Recreation Commission? Yes, it does. All meetings, the open meetings law says that all meetings of a governing body of a public agency shall be open to the public. So just breaking that down a little bit, a governing body is a board with the authority to make decisions or recommendations, and a public agency is the city or any sub-agency of the city. So the Meridian City Council is a governing body. You really are too. You have the authority to make decisions or recommendations, but another way to look at it is that you're a sub-agency of the city, and your committees are even sub-agencies of the city. So the open meetings law does apply to committee meetings as well. And actually your bylaws say that, and the law has been clarified to also say that within the statutes. There was a time when we did that voluntarily just through bylaws, but it actually does apply to committees by law. So what is a meeting? And there's a kind of a recipe for what is a meeting. A meeting is a quorum, so half plus one of your membership, in your case, 5 people, a quorum making a decision, or a quorum deliberating. A decision, of course, is taking an action, and deliberation can mean receiving or exchanging information that's related to the commission, or exchanging opinions related to the business of the commission. So just talking things over. Just checking to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I got nervous. So the open meetings law says that all commission and committee meetings must be noticed, and there's a window within which they must be noticed. For the Parks Commission, it's 48 hours for a regular meeting or 24 for a special meeting. It's actually 5 days, but there's an kind of a special way to shorten that window when there's a regular recurring meeting, and that is noticed every year. So the clerk does notice all of your meetings for the entire year at the beginning of the year, and that lets Rachel notice your meetings 48 hours in advance. Notice must be posted at City Hall on a literal bulletin board. It's kind of a old-fashioned portion of the law, and on the city website. Our city also allows you to subscribe to email notices. So we email to a large mailing list. And for some public hearings or things that we want to get extra notice, that we do that through social media or publication in the paper. But the open meetings law just requires that it be posted at City Hall. Of course, your meetings must be open to the public and provide the opportunity for all persons to attend. You must follow a published and adopted agenda. You can amend your agenda after it's been noticed, but it's pretty limited. You can't actually take action on anything that's added to the agenda during the meeting or during the meeting. If it's added at the top of the meeting, before the agenda is adopted, you have a little more leeway, but the takeaway here is that you really need to follow your published agenda. You can't deviate from what's there, and you can't add things after you've started. And actually, that's part of the reason that I'm here, is to stop you from doing that. You have such pros running your meetings that hardly ever happens with you guys. In fact, I can't remember the last time it did. So your commission is really very observant of the open meeting requirements. Finally, the law requires that your minutes be memorialized by summary minutes, which you adopt those at the top of every meeting. So a tip, this is your Attorney General, Lawrence Wasden. His office has said the requirement that the open meeting law, that you comply with the open meeting law, you should never evade that by holding smaller meetings with less than a quorum, and then having a go-between, contact everyone and kind of see what they think. This is called a serial meeting. It's frowned upon. It's technically not a violation, but it really violates the spirit of the open meeting law. So while it's possible to kind of come to a decision by having tiny little meetings of less than a quorum, don't do that. Serial meetings are frowned upon. Do not attempt to evade the open meeting law. We should be attempting to comply with it.
Emily, I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
On that note. So if, let's say, the commissioners got together for some purpose that it wasn't for an open meeting, is that allowed?
So I have some scenarios for you coming up. Good segue. It is indeed allowed. So if you remember, the recipe for the meeting is the quorum plus deliberation or quorum plus decision. So if you have even a quorum that's talking about, cookie recipes or something like that, that's not a meeting, because you're not deliberating about the business of the commission. So I have some hypotheticals. I used to do it as kind of a quiz show, but I'm just gonna kind of run through them with you. So this, I think, Joe, is what you're talking about. 5 commissioners at a New Year's party talking about your pets. Is that a meeting? No. As I said, that meeting does not include informal gatherings without deliberations. If 5 commissioners are at a New Year's party talking about whether Meridian Parks should have an off-leash guinea pig park, is that a meeting? Probably not. We don't have an off-leash guinea pig park. There's not really one on the horizon. It's an informal gathering and you're not deliberating toward a decision. But if, you know, a weird world, if the commission is asked to then make a decision about that issue, if that proposal comes before the commission, you would need to disclose that discussion on the meeting record. So you would say, I just need to disclose that at the New Year's party, we're actually talking about this. We didn't know that this was going to be on our agenda, but this is the nature of our conversation. And generally that's enough to kind of cleanse that. It wasn't a violation at the time, but to cleanse that kind of off the record discussion. If you have 5 commissioners at a New Year's party talking about an off-leash guinea pig park proposal that's on an upcoming agenda, that is a meeting. So it's still an informal gathering, but you have a quorum and you're deliberating. So that is the meeting. And it's unlikely that that meeting has been properly noticed with an agenda, and there probably won't be minutes. So that is a violation. Now, if there's 4 of you, same scenario, you're at a party, you're talking about something upcoming on your agenda. It's not a meeting, but don't do that. You don't have a quorum, but it's still deliberation. So even where a critical piece of that is it an official meeting? Even if a critical piece of that is missing, that still again violates the purpose of the law. You're kind of in the realm of that serial meeting that our Attorney General has said, don't do that. And we agree, don't do that. It's not a violation, but violates the purpose. So another aspect to consider with open meetings law is the gathering of ex parte information. That's where you receive off the record information or opinions that is regarding a matter that is before the commission. So citizens having informal conversations with citizens, kind of gathering their input, gathering their opinions, emails, phone calls, site visits, so going to the place to look at a future park, to kind of see the lay of the land, doing research, interviewing people. All of that is gathering information off the record, and that is not allowed. All of the conversations, all of the information gathering needs to be on the record. Now, this happens to city council members a lot. Citizens email them, or call them, or see them in the grocery store. This probably has happened to some of you, or they say, hey, you're on the Parks Commission. I have some thoughts about this, upcoming park proposal or different park issues. Those are conversations that you need to kind of, if you can, make a note of them. If it's regarding a matter that's pending before the commission, you do need to disclose that. You need to say, on this date, or if you don't know the date, just say, I ran into my neighbor at the grocery store and they shared this opinion with me. This was the nature of the opinion. It's best in those scenarios to say to the citizen, I really can't take in this information. That really needs to be on the record. And I would encourage you to contact Rachel or the city clerk's office and give that information to them so that the entire commission can consider it. So do what you can to kind of steer folks onto the record. So again, the ex parte information gathering is a deviation from the public record. And again, that legislative intent of the open meeting law, when you're forming public policy, that's the public's business. It shouldn't be conducted in secret or in a place where the public cannot participate. So when a governing body deviates from the public record, they're essentially conducting a second fact gathering session without proper notice. This is the Idaho Supreme Court, by the way. So this is from a case. When you're gathering off the record information, you're kind of having a secret, unnoticed fact gathering session. So the best way to handle ex parte information gathering is to avoid it. However, you are not held to a standard of disinterestedness. You love Meridian, you love Meridian parks, you live here, you see them, you appreciate them. So you know the community, you know our parks, you know how things work. So there's a lot of information that you just have that was gathered off the record just by virtue of you being you. So in that case, it's best to disclose that information. So when you have a meeting and you happen to know something about a particular topic just by virtue of your existence, it's best to just disclose it. I drive by there every day on my way to work, or I live right by there. It's also possible to do a site visit, and your commission is just the champion of the site visit. Rachel has it completely down. We notice it as a public meeting, and the public is welcome to join us, and then we have minutes. So it's possible to have a meeting on site as a commission and avoid any ex parte information gathering. So is it inappropriate ex parte information gathering? If you go to the proposed site of a future off-leash guinea pig park that's going to be discussed at an upcoming meeting, that is inappropriate. You must avoid that. You're off the record, you're gathering facts, the public isn't invited, the meeting hasn't been noticed, or I guess your fact gathering session has not been noticed. That's the classic situation that you really need to avoid. Don't make it a point to drive to a site to look at it or gather information that you can then bring back to the meeting. It's better to either have a site visit or gather that information on the record. If you live near the site and drive by every day on your way to and from work, again, that's not ex parte information gathering, or at least not inappropriate, but please do disclose that. It's incidental. It's the virtue of you living in Meridian or being in Meridian. So please just disclose that. Again, a site visit, you meet at the site of the proposed guinea pig park. That's okay. That's a meeting. Information is received for the purpose of making a decision. As long as it's properly noticed and minutes are taken and the public can be there, you are just having a meeting. So that is very okay. Regarding public testimony, the open meetings law does not require that the commission take public comments or testimony, but of course the president may allow that. It's really up to the president, and that can either be kind of based on people you might see in the audience who, you just allow them to testify while they're there, or maybe it's an item noticed for public comment or testimony. Executive sessions. In my history with the Parks Commission, I can remember only one executive session. An executive session is a closed meeting, so it's sort of an exception to the open meeting law. There's a process. It has to be noticed as an executive session, and there are 10 reasons to have an executive session. They're listed in the statute, and it's pretty unlikely that the Parks Commission would conduct deliberations under any of those exceptions. I believe that the one I'm thinking of was there's an exception for the acquisition of real estate. So there was some sort of early on confidential information that Steve wanted to gather input from the commission, but it wasn't ready for public disclosure. If that's coming up, just please contact my office and we'll properly notice it and we'll walk you through it. It's pretty unlikely, but just for your information, City Council does this quite a bit. So phone and online meetings, though I think we've all learned more about this provision of the open meeting law in the last year than I ever expected to. The law does allow a meeting by telephone call or through Zoom, like we're doing right now, as long as one commissioner is physically at the notice location. Again, we've got our 3 commissioners there, at least. Thank you. We have had one in a lot of these meetings. The communications have to be audible to everyone who's there, and all the people who are attending remotely or calling in. and voting can't be secret. That can't happen in the chat portion of the app or by email. Everything still has to be on the record. As you'll recall, that during the COVID shutdown, the governor did waive this provision of the open meeting law, which was pretty amazing. And we were all allowed to be remote, but that was short-lived. So thank you to those who are there. And we need at least one person, basically, so that the public can also attend at City Hall. So a word about email and text and social media communications. So whenever there's a quorum of commissioners on an email thread, having deliberations, so talking about something that is related to an issue before the commission, that's actually an illegal meeting because it hasn't been noticed. There's obviously nobody physically present. No one can hear you. And you could be, if you're voting on things, making decisions, that could be a violation of the secret voting provision. As an aside, it also creates a public record. So whether you're using your personal email account or personal device really doesn't matter under the Idaho Public Records Act. As public officials, records that you create are subject to disclosure upon request. So this is kind of the intersection of the Idaho Public Records Act and the Open Meetings Law. If you're holding a secret meeting over email, there's going to be a record of it, and that record is subject to disclosure. So it's a double no-no. Administrative messages are not deliberations. So Rachel letting everyone know about the meeting details, or if the chair is kind of lining people up to go to an event or something like that, that's not deliberation. That's really just logistics. So that is allowed. But otherwise, please avoid emailing about substantive matters. That goes also for text and social media. It's honestly a little harder to track. Obviously, the city and for your personal email accounts, the city doesn't have access to those things. So it's kind of a thorny issue anyway, when those discussions are being had on platforms that the city doesn't have access to. So please avoid. Actions taken in violation of the open meeting law are void. So it's like they never happened. And then everything that comes out of that is also void. The way to fix open meetings violations is to start over from the beginning. So it's definitely a pain. It's a waste of time. And it's, in some cases, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. So it's clearly better to avoid them, but there is a cure available. Folks who knowingly violate the open meeting law, so they have a secret meeting or take steps to evade the open meeting law provisions, that a citizen could sue, and those individuals could be fined personally. So it's certainly not worth it. Please do what you can to comply, and you always do. So moving on to ethics in government. Everyone feel free to interrupt if there are any questions, but I'll keep on trucking. Self-interested contracts is a provision that comes into play quite a bit with our commissions. The Transparent and Ethical Government Act, Chapter 5 talks about self-interested contracts. This Idaho Code Section 181359 is actually in the criminal code, so it's kind of a cousin of the bribery statutes, and our city code also prohibits self-interested contracts. A self-interested contract is where a commissioner is interested in a contract with the city. So it's basically the city is contracting with a commissioner in their capacity as a private business owner. So for example, if a commissioner were a vendor of sprinkler systems, so that the Parks Commission obviously buys a lot of sprinkler stuff and deals a lot with sprinklers. So there would be, if a commissioner were making a contract with the city to sell those goods, that would be a self-interested contract. It's generally prohibited. However, there are some exceptions. If there's a shortage of suppliers, if it's a disaster response, which actually does come up for parks, if, for example, during Snowmageddon, the Parks Department was procuring a lot of equipment and services for disaster response. If a commissioner has a remote interest in the contract, so if they're just a member of the company that's, or an employee of the company that's contracting with the city or something like that, the commissioner can make a written disclosure and kind of cleanse that self-interested contract. And finally, if there's a specific provision for unpaid commissioners. So that's you guys, your volunteers. And then if the city were to bid out the project or the procurement, then the commissioner could bid. But it's actually a pretty complicated process. So if you find yourself in this situation, this is really just to flag that for you. Let me know and we will figure it out. We will walk you through it. Conflicts of interest. So this is another chapter in the Transparent and Ethical Government Act. Meridian City Code also prohibits conflicts of interest. So conflict of interest is really about money. It says that when you're asked to make a decision as a commissioner, and that decision could benefit you or a household member personally or professionally, that is a conflict of interest. So it's not a bias, it's not a preference, it's really about money. So if you're in the situation where you can make a decision in your capacity as a commissioner that will benefit you or a household member, that is a conflict of interest. If you think you have a conflict of interest, contact me, contact the city attorney's office right away. We'll do an analysis for you. If our office finds no conflict, the commissioner can proceed normally. If there is a potential conflict, there's a whole process that the commissioner needs to follow to kind of cleanse and disclose that. The commissioner would submit a written statement describing the conflict. The commission, it's a bit of a, certainly the city attorney's office should already be on board, but the commission consults the city attorney's office. So the commission would turn to me and I would say, I think you should allow this, notwithstanding the conflict, either because the commissioner has followed the procedure for volunteer commissioners or one of the other exceptions, or that I could say there's no way to cleanse this conflict. We need to excuse the conflicted commissioner. You don't have to take that, then the commission votes on whether to excuse that commissioner. You don't have to take the city attorney's advice. You're certainly sheltered from any ramifications that might come out of that if you do. So again, really quick overview, but just something to keep in mind. I'm happy to take that call and I'm happy to do that analysis. So just let me know if you think you might have a conflict of interest. Gifts. So in your capacity as commissioners, you are not allowed to accept gifts of more than $50 in value. And of course, that's in the course of your official duties. So if you were to receive a gift from a vendor or a sponsor or something like that, that would not be allowed. And a gift in any amount, whether it's $50 or less, is not allowed if it's given to influence your actions on the commission. That's bribery. And of course, you may not grant favors to members of the public or to anyone in your capacity as a commissioner. Pretty rare, but again, something to just kind of keep in mind if there's any exchange of goods or offer of goods or services. So ethics law violations, for self-interested contracts violations, there is a fine and a jail sentence. Conflicts of interest, there's a fine. Bribery, of course, is a huge deal. Corrupt acts or a violation of Meridian City Code, there are fines and jail sentences. This is very, very rare. These are largely criminal consequences, and most ethics law violations are technical, and if they do lead to any kind of criminal charge, that's pretty rare. So I put this in here just to let you know that it is real. It can be a big deal. I think it would be hard for you to venture into this area in your capacity as commissioners, but please just take it seriously and let's work together. Most of these violations can be avoided through disclosure and dealing with them ahead of time. So don't be afraid, just call me. This is kind of a summary that we've developed for helping you remember ethics law violations, is that to listen to your pangs. So P for personal benefit. If you think you have a conflict of interest, please call me. We'll work through that. Avoid ex parte fact gathering and definitely disclose if you can't avoid. Notice is critical. Agenda and minutes provide public notice of what's going on and their opportunity to participate in that process. When the agenda is noticed, you need to follow that agenda as closely as possible. G for gifts, avoid gifts or be wary. Always observe the $50 limit and understand the motives of what's going on. And finally, S, self-interested contracts. We talked a little bit about that. If you think you might have one, just let me know. We'll work through the statutory procedures. All right, there are a few resources for you if you found this fascinating. The Attorney General's office has some great manuals with a lot of FAQs. I actually enjoy talking about this, so feel free to call me anytime or email and I can look stuff up or we can work through some things. The Idaho code provisions, if you'd like to read them for yourself, you are welcome to do that, of course. And anyone in my office is happy to help you, but I'm assigned to your commission and I'm happy to help you as well. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to say I appreciate that you're present in our meetings, because if there's ever a question, you're always there to help. So you're appreciated and legal.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Sure, if I-
not so much for a question, but Emily, don't tempt me with the guinea pig park. I'll do it.
I was thinking.
I'll make it happen.
I would love it.
Madam President? Madam President,
Yes, Commissioner Bobo.
I have a question just to clarify. Going back to speaking with people in the community, it's not that unusual being a commissioner, being out in the community. Well, people will come up to me and say, I would love to have another pickleball court. Or when are we going to get more pickleball courts? And when are we going to get another dog park or something like that? Could you review again more specifically what I'm supposed to do with that information?
Sure, Madam Chair, Commissioner Bobo. So the issue with off the record information gathering is really specific to issues that are pending before the commission. So if the commission is considering, the future of the pickleball facilities, that's where you, and I guess if you know specifically that that's coming up, that's where you can tell the citizen, hey, this is going to be on an upcoming agenda. Please direct comments to Rachel or to the clerk's office. And, Rachel and the clerk's office can also help them get clued into the agenda so that they can provide testimony and comments. Otherwise, if it's just sort of, I know what you mean, the just ideas or kind of general input, things people would like to see in parks, I think you guys do hear quite a bit of that. That's something that you can say, you know what, I'll mention that to Steve or Mike or, whichever staff member is maybe in charge of that, and just kind of pass that along. If I guess if it turns out that pickleball courts are coming up, you can say, I was approached in the grocery store by this citizen who mentioned this to me, and that was in, November. And they said they would really like to have more pickleball courts. And then you've disclosed what you need to. So I think that disclosure is really important. always. It's especially important if someone approaches you regarding a pending matter, something that the commission is already considering.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? No? Give it a second for the delay. Okay, I'm going to move on then. Thank you so much, Emily,
Thank you.
especially with having new commissioners on board. It's nice to have a refresher even for some of us that have been here a little bit.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so next we have Mike Barton with the Discovery Park Phase 2 design discussion.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. I'm going to got a couple of slides, and Rachel, can I share my screen, please?
Sure, I'll just go ahead and exit out of here and you can do what you need to do.
Yeah, thank you. I made a couple of revisions. One is to add a guinea pig park at the last minute. So
Yes.
I want to make sure you have the latest information regarding that. So let's see. Can everybody see the?
Yes.
Can you see that? Looks good? Okay, good. So what I want to talk about this evening is Discovery Park Phase 2. As you know, we opened up Discovery Park Phase 1 about a year and a half ago. It was late July of 2019. And you can see some of the amenities right there. But what I wanted to talk about first is just kind of go back in time and for some of the new commissioners, bring you up to speed on Discovery Park Phase 1 and some of the timing and budget and, the grand opening. And like Shelley said, we were really excited to be chosen for that IRPA award for outstanding facilities. So then after I get done with that, I want to go on and talk about some of the things that we have planned for Phase 2 and some of the transportation and pedestrian connectivity offsite in South Meridian, and then just some of the design, construction timing and the process and what we see our next steps being. So please interrupt at any time. We want to have a discussion and keep it kind of informal. So this is Discovery Park Phase 1. It's approximately 27 acres in South Meridian off of Lake Hazel Road. Located on the south side of Lake Hazel Road between Locus Grove and Eagle Road. The overall plan has an off-leash dog park. It has some specialty gardens, walking paths, a small performance stage, a vent lawn, 3 picnic shelters. In Phase 1, we wanted to kind of start the design of the park with a destination playground. Settlers Park is an example of a destination playground where, because this is a regional park, and anything over 30 acres, 30 to 40 acres, this is certainly qualifies as a regional park where you would drive from out of the area to visit this. We felt it was appropriate to have more of a destination type playground. And we did with the large playground, the roller slides that come off the hill, the sandbox, the climbing rocks and climbing map. There's 3 picnic shelters to support those amenities. And then of course, a couple of softball fields, just because of softball is always popular. We always turn teams away. There's a huge need in the community for softball, and especially softball fields that have lights. So the process of phase one, and this is pretty typical with a lot of parks, is it's generally speaking, it's a 3-year process. Phase one started in October of 2016. During those first months, we got a design consultant on board. We did our public outreach. Throughout the course of the year, of course, we came to the commission. We went to council. We had several public meetings, and then all the permitting that is required to build a park, whether it's the license agreements with irrigation districts. There is a Williams pipeline facility that crosses the site, so we had to do some permitting work with them. A lot of conversations with ACHD, because this is just like any other development project, that it's going to add traffic to the area. It's not typical commute time traffic, but there are periods of time over the course of the year and during the week where you may have an event or a sporting activity that ends and the next one's coming in, so there are traffic concerns. So from there, we went to bidding and construction. We generally always try to bid larger projects in the late fall and winter time. We feel that we gain much better pricing that way, and we also get a lot more interest. Frankly, we want a lot of bidders on our projects. The more people that bid it, the better. We get better pricing. Everybody knows who's pulling plans, so it's better for everybody if that part is done during the winter. And then so we get those contracts in place, and then we kick off construction in the early spring. Construction generally on a park like this generally takes about 1.5 years. One of the things that is quite common, it's not like building a store where you can wax the floor and then everybody goes in. There is a grow-in period. So even though most parks look complete, they need a little bit of establishment time before you open them to the public. So there is a couple of months there. And then of course the grand opening. So one of the things with Discovery Park is we put a lot of infrastructure in that will support kind of the back half of the property. So we had a beginning budget of over $8 million. The final cost that you can see was just over $8 million. So we brought the project in really close to the budget. It's good. We want to execute those contracts. We don't want to leave, we don't want to budget too high, and we want to kind of hit that sweet spot. So we feel that the execution on this was kind of right in line with where we want to be. So moving on to phase two. This is the overall plan for phase two, and you can kind of see that phase one is this washed out area that is closer to the top of the screen. This is the entrance drive that comes in, existing parking lot, destination playground is right here with picnic shelters. We have a couple of lit softball fields over on the side here. So we have this overall plan broken down into 3 primary focus areas. We have an active area, an area for teens, and then also some more softball fields. So one of the things that we always kind of strive for is a good blend of amenities, and especially those offerings should be somewhat multi-generational. So we want to build parks that can be enjoyed and can be used by people really of all ages. And so many parks you see have a playground, and it seems to almost cater to more younger children than anything else. Although, parents like to bring kids to playgrounds, and seniors, through some of our surveys, we found that seniors also enjoy playgrounds because they have a place to take their grandkids. So in that regard, it is a little bit multi-generational, but it's not as active as we like. So in phase one, we had the picnic shelters, some of the walking trails, those passive uses, and the destination playground. So we wanted to kind of hit some other user groups in this. So we have the active area, that this is kind of an enlargement of that active area. And in here, we have a couple of bocce ball courts, a picnic shelter, 6 pickleball courts, another picnic shelter over here. We have some basketball courts. And then one of the things that we've been hearing from people a lot that's really highly desirable is some bike facilities. And one of the things that we want to put in this park to kind of fill that void is a pump track. And it hasn't been laid out yet, but a pump track is concrete or asphalt, and you kind of go up and down. You use your own power to get around the track. So it's somewhere that you can take scooters, bicycles. I think people get on it with skateboards. So it's a very active type thing. Again, some of the multi-generational uses all kind of wrapped into one. There's also a placeholder down here for a community garden. And the community garden we see as following the model that we've used in Kleiner Park and had a lot of success with, where it's more of a club and it's one piece of acreage, and there's a club and everybody just shares in the responsibility. And that would be opposed to some community gardens that are more garden boxes that take a lot of management. So we've got a spot here. It takes the right person to organize the club. And so I'm saying placeholder, and we are right now actively soliciting and kind of putting the feelers out for somebody that might be interested in that. So in this active area, I'm going to pause right there and see if there's any questions. Okay, seeing none. We're going to move on to the softball complex, which we're calling more of a multi-use area. So this would add 3 softball fields to the existing 2. Discovery Park would then become a prime location for out of town softball tournaments. In addition to the softball uses that we have just with our regular adult softball, there is a lot of demand for tournament complexes. But one of the interesting things about this that we've kind of thought out is that we don't want it to be just used by one group of people or cater to one demographic. So we've shortened the fences, and you can see that there's a couple of full-size soccer fields that are laid down over the top of the softball fields. So when the softball fields are not in use, the side fences can actually roll back out of place, and it can be opened up to soccer, lacrosse, football, flag football, whatever the case may be. Generally, those sports activities that use rectangles could fit on top of this softball field. So these fields we will be proposing that they have light. And so we will have a couple of lighted rectangles out here that can be used. And especially during the shoulder season, where our day length isn't quite as long, these lighted fields are a huge demand. So with that, and then there's some other things we're working on that like different base positions that will allow it to be used for Little League baseball as well as adult softball, girls fast pitch. You know, we want the fields, we know that these fields would be busy all the time, but we want them to be busy with a wide variety of users. So in this plan, right off the parking lot, you have a drop-off area. You can drop off softball bags, just people, maybe people with mobility issues, drop them off. There is a restroom building and a concession stand that would service this area. Also a planter area right in the center with a small children's playground that could be used, not a big destination playground by any means, but just a small playground with a covering. If you bring your family to watch somebody that's playing softball, maybe you bring your kids with you. They want to have some activity to do while you're playing sports. So that's the layout with that, and I'll pause for questions on this area. Okay, so the next area that really kind of fits that hard to reach demographic, and that is teens. It seems as if, and we've been kind of struggling with this, but teens really need a place to go. I mean, so many of these park amenities are built for kids, you know, families with picnics, adults that have, you know, with the adult softball, seniors in a lot of respect, but the teens are a really tough area to reach. So a year ago, we did some outreach to several teen groups, and together with doing some individual research, and we took that input from the teen groups, and we wanted to develop an area that teens could feel comfortable going to, that they could hang out, have Wi-Fi connection, have some activities to do, whether it's basketball or sand volleyball. One of the things that's really popular, obviously, is skateboarding and riding scooters. So we're not proposing a full skate park here, but there are skate amenities that you can place in an area like this that provide an opportunity for those uses. We've said a lot of times where we have kids that want to skateboard on amenities in parks, whether it's benches or stairs or anything, and it's really not, it's not their fault, it's our fault for not providing them a place to go. So in this park, we want to provide that place to go. So if you're skateboarding and you're riding on a curb over in the playground area, it's like, hey, we got a spot for you over here, you know, use this stuff. And so there's a company that sells ramps and different skate amenities. They call it a skate spot. One of the other cool things that we have in there is this tree bosque right here. And so a series of poles set up, so you could either put tight ropes across it, or you can set up hammocks in there. So it's kind of that hangout spot. This particular area is positioned on the edge of the park, close to the new collector road that needs to be built. So the visibility is good. It's kind of off on its own. You know, you could play music without interfering with other activities. So that is that's what we're thinking of right there. Are there any questions with this area?
Madam President.
Yes.
Sorry, I can't hear you, but I was just going to say that I think this is amazing. As a teen myself, I am looking forward to it, and I can agree with everything that he's saying in the sense that I will definitely spend a lot of time here.
Awesome. That's good to hear. That's what we want.
Madam President.
Yes.
Mike, I'll echo Commissioner Hyde's comments. Not that I'm a teen myself, I'm as old as dirt. So, but my daughter will definitely love this. She's a skateboarder, and I know that that this will be a perfect excuse to get us out of the house, away from the PlayStation, away from the TikTok, and definitely out and about at the park.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I kind of touched on it a little bit, and this is a really extensive list, and I'm not going to go over every single item on there, but for the most part, South Meridian is still somewhat rural. The road network, pedestrian connectivity, sidewalks haven't been improved yet. But you can look at the map and see where Discovery Park is down here. The areas in red are subdivisions that have been recently approved. So you can see that there's a tremendous amount of growth in South Meridian. And with that growth is bringing road improvements. If we go back to the process with building a park, and it's really a 3-year process. So we're in 2021 right now. This phase 2, if we hit the ground running as fast as we could right now, would not open for almost 3 years. So in the meantime, you can just kind of scan down this list, and the very top here has been taken directly from ACHD's integrated 5-year work plan. And you can just scan down the list of years that wherever there's a CN, that means construction. And there are years 2021, 22, 23, all the way through that. So ACHD has actively prioritized South Meridian for several road and intersection projects. With those road projects come curb, gutter, and sidewalk. With the development process, a lot of the developers have been conditioned to do improvements on their own. So there's entirely another list down there that just the roundabout Locus Grove and Lake Hazel is scheduled for 2022. And these are all developer projects. Well, Locus Grove is going to be widened 1,300 feet to the north. We need to build improvements of our own with this new collector road down the side of the park and improvements right here. There will be a hot signal to cross the street right here into Lavender Heights. And then in addition to that, there's a lot of exciting pedestrian connectivity that's planned for the area that by the time this park is open, by the time phase 2 is open, you will find traveling in the area much, much easier. If you wanted to visit the park on a bike, there may be a couple of difficult spots, but there will be workarounds, and there will be pedestrian connectivity from the park to the YMCA and Hillsdale Park and Hillsdale Elementary, and then points with some of the pathway projects that are planned with these development projects. You should be able to get from Tuscany and areas up near Mountain View High School all the way to Discovery Park on a bicycle if you want. Like I said, there may be some gaps, but it's actively being worked on. It's our goal in a perfect world that we would time the whole thing out, just perfectly, and everything would open up all at once. But the reality of that is that that's never going to be the case. There's always going to be some growing pains. So we think that with everything that's being planned right now, that it will be a lot easier to get around South Meridian. So next steps, we've got a couple of different options that we're working through, and some of these options definitely depend on council decisions. They depend on the Williams Pipeline Company that crosses the park. They're going to replace a couple of the pipelines. We want to get that work out of the way. We really have three options, and it's we don't have the answers tonight, but we're working towards those answers. In fact, we've even started at least designing the parking lot and the collector road on the east side of the park now, because we want to get a certificate of zoning compliance and then an application into ACHD for our impacts to what the traffic would be in the area, and have that conversation with them and get the permits in place. And some of the timing of that takes, ACHD is running over a couple of months by the time you submit an application. So we want to get some of that stuff, get the dominoes falling in that regard. So, I mean, option one is that we finish phase 2 design and we permit in 2021 and bid next winter, start construction in 22, and then construct and then open in the summer of 23. So, the other option that's on the table is to just delay the whole thing until the infrastructure is fully built. We don't like that option. We need to, the area is growing, the demand for park services is growing. We are collecting impact fees. We have the impact fees to build phase 2. We want to spend them, but we don't want to put something out there that will be a burden to the area and add so much traffic to a road network and cause bottlenecks. So we're sensitive to that for sure. And then the other option is to construct the new collector, the parking lot, and any other infrastructure, and just kind of get these sections of the park that we talked about, the active and the softball area and the teen area, just ready for construction when the timing's right. So just have like a pad ready building site there. So those are our next steps and the options, how we see it. And I think I want to stop right there and just see if you have any questions or feedback.
Madam President.
Commissioner Delcimino.
Mike, thank you, Madam President. Mike, we have an idea of what the mayor's thoughts are on this particular item as far as delaying construction until transportation and infrastructure is fully built. We kind of have an idea of what we hear within our circles feel and how we feel about that particular item. Do we have any pulse on what the citizens of Southern Meridian feel, or what the people of Meridian in general feel, what their opinion is on whether we should delay the construction, whether they have no opinion, whether they say, gun ho, let's keep on going, and we'll, accommodate for the construction of transportation infrastructure, hand in hand? Do we have some sort of a pulse on that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And short of putting out a survey, I mean, I think that's why we're we're bringing this to this group to kind of get some of that feedback. And are parks a big burden to the road network? I mean, they are, but they, like, you know, today or last week they weren't. But there are times of the year where, in certain days of the week, and that they can be, they can produce a lot of traffic. So, I mean, I think, as just for starters, let's start with this group, and I'm interested to listen to what you have to say.
Madam President, for a quick follow-up question.
Absolutely.
Mike, just as a very brief follow-up question, and either you or Steve or both can maybe answer this for me. Is it uncommon for two commissions? Because I would assume at this point, because obviously we have our responsibilities toward the parks, the park itself and the construction and phase 2, but I would imagine that with the, you know, the fact that transportation and infrastructure are involved, planning and zoning also has a particular responsibility on that. Is it uncommon for two commissions to come together either in a joint commission or some form of joint workshop or meeting to where we both kind of put our heads together on as both, you know, as two different commissions, but with the same objective and same goal to kind of come up with a, you know, a solution or a bigger game plan to go forward?
Yeah, so parks don't go to P and Z. It's a staff level certificate of zoning compliance that's issued. We want to hear from the commission and obviously city council and stakeholders as far as people that use the park, you know, to determine amenities. And you know, council is amenities and budget, and our stakeholders are amenities, and commission is, as a stakeholder, we definitely want to hear from you guys as far as what amenities are appropriate, or and in a lot of regards, timing. We have a stated goal of a certain number of acres per 1,000, and as our population grows, we're falling behind. So it's our goal to provide park services at our stated goal of acres per 1,000, and we don't like to fall behind. So we want to move forward.
So Mike, based on the list that you showed before from ACHD, it showed their construction kind of in alignment with option 1. Am I reading that correctly? Does it look like 21, 22, 23? So it seems like their construction is occurring at the same time as your other list. And my next question, or I guess that wasn't really a question, but then do we have the budget?
Yeah, those are great questions. Yeah, the ACHD's integrated 5-year work plan aligns with option 1. When we built phase 2, we thought we were using all of our impact fees, and at the time we did, but we have been collecting there's been so much development that we've been collecting impact fees at a really high rate. And if I gave you an amount, I would probably be wrong, but I think it's in the neighborhood of 13, 14 million that we have right now. And the other part of this is that we collect impact fees for one purpose, and that is to build parks. And developers that pay those fees expect us to spend those fees on parks, and they don't want us to save them. So we want to do it right. We don't want to build a park and that's a burden on the area either. But there is a push to have another impact fee study completed. And if we are penalized if we have a lot of money in the bank and less acreage. So prior to the next impact fee study being completed, we need to spend our money on as many acres as we possibly can. Steve, I don't know if you have something to add.
Yeah, I turned my stuff on so I could see if I could add something. Is that okay, Madam President?
Absolutely.
First of all, in response to the question that Dom asked about the transportation versus parks, I think it's safe to say that both are priorities to the citizens. The need for transportation has scored extremely strong in recent surveys that the city has put out to residents. So we know that our citizens want transportation improvements. As growth continues, the roads are becoming more and more clogged, congested, and people want solutions. In general, people are very happy with parks. So they're not clamoring for parks because they think they're underserved, but we want to keep up the current love for parks that is out there, because people do recognize that Meridian has great parks. Second thing is that while commissions, can come together, we've seen that with the Arts Commission and the Parks Commission coming together. I don't think that the P&Z Commission and the Parks and Rec Commission necessarily need to reconcile this one. I think we could simply, I think that belongs in the purview of the City Council. And I think something just as simple from this commission that, hey, we would like to see this next phase of the park move together as soon as possible, might be sufficient, and we could, carry that forward. We are hoping to go forward to council and carry for a similar presentation to them, hopefully next month. The Transportation Commission is working on prioritizing projects citywide right now for the 5-year work program. And we have submitted a request to, have the area around Discovery Park specifically looked at and prioritized. So, we already have reached out and made that connection. So I think I would just say, we don't need this commission to fully reconcile the two. Those facts are going to go forward to the City Council at some point. I think the question that we would like the commission's input on tonight is, are you pleased still with the proposed list of amenities that you've heard tonight? And would you like to see the park move forward as soon as practical?
So my question, that this would not be an action item, correct? It's just a discussion. Emily? You still there? Would this need to be an action item?
I think we're looking for a general direction.
Okay.
Feedback, not a formal approval. Yes.
Right.
Well, in my honest opinion, option 1 seems most feasible because of the foresight and because of the alignment with ACHD. Their priorities may change, so we can't really hold them to their dates, but we certainly have our priorities that will not change.
Madam President,
Commissioner Bevins?
I think the plans look great for the amenities of the park. I think it's a great job. I think it'll attract, well, yeah, I think, worrying about traffic is a valid concern with how good a park it is. But I would echo what was said that, relying on ACHD. They may change their minds or change plans. They may have delays. And I think the citizens of South Meridian deserve that park in all its glory. So I like option one. And
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino.
I would like to echo Commissioner or Vice President Bevan's comments on that one as well.
Madam President.
Commissioner Bobo, sorry.
Oh, it's Commissioner Short.
Smart.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
I would just like to say, as a resident in the heart of all the construction that's happening right now in South Meridian, talking with my neighbors, and of course there's Facebook pages and stuff for our neighborhood. And my neighborhood is extremely excited about the growth and the development and everything that's happening in South Meridian. So option one, in my opinion, is I favor option one. And like I said, I am in the heart of everything that's happening in this area of South Meridian, and we are just very excited for this park to continue to grow and develop.
Madam President?
Commissioner Bobo, did I get it?
Yes. Yeah, right this time. I would agree. My opinion would be option one as well. And I am excited to see more softball, baseball fields, because I have heard from the community that is definitely an excitement that they have, is more fields. Although, of course, they love the fields that are there. I've heard a lot of really positive comments from people that have played there. And also, as far as the teen goes, the teen area, the skateboarding spot seems to be of excitement, and hope that there'll be more places for skateboarding, as the places around town that we do have for teens to do that seem to fill up and are constantly in use. And so having another spot where they could skateboard, especially when they can go to the park as a family and have a spot for the teens to hang out while the younger siblings are playing activity, or the parents are in softball, they have something to do together as a family. That was an added benefit that I've heard a lot of positive feedback about.
Madam President.
Commissioner Hyde.
I personally agree with everyone, and I believe option one is the best option. I would love to see the park open as soon as possible. Hopefully, maybe even before I go off to college and I get good use out of it. So I'm excited for that.
Madam President.
Commissioner Kang, is that how you say that?
Yes, that's correct. I fully agree with my fellow commissioners' thoughts on this, and am fully supportive of option one.
Is Commissioner West still with us? This was something that she was interested in.
I just want to thank everyone for weighing in. Hope I'm not interrupting anyone, but I just, that is the feedback and dialogue that we were hoping to have in relation to this. So that's helpful and will allow us to carry it forward to the next step. And I'm gonna turn it back to Mike.
Yeah, that's all I have. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so next on our list, we have the Pathway Projects Update for 2021 with Kim Warren.
Thank you, Madam President. Let's see, Mike, if you can stop sharing, or I'd like to share my screen, and however best that can happen.
I'm getting there.
In the meantime, if we all need a 7th inning stretch, I'm starting to get a little sleepy, so I hope I'll be able to be coherent. Okay. Great. Let's see. And great. Everyone's ready. Thank you for your time, Madam President and Commission members. I'm Kim Warren. I'm the Pathways Project Manager. So I'm just going to provide an update as to what's going on with Pathways and a quick note of gratitude that the work I do, and I get a fair amount of support from Mike, has been able to go on without much incident. So I've watched my workmates scramble to be effective and reinvent things, and we just kind of keep going along. So there's been quite a bit of progress. I'm going to talk first about pathways that are underway or under construction that we've kind of put to bed for the winter, even though it's not particularly wintry at the moment. In fact, if you talk to the parks guys in the shop, it's practically spring. So our trail hub at 10 Mile Road is one of those, the Fairview Avenue connection, what's going on with the South Slough, and then a quick note on the Whitestone pedestrian bridge. So the trail hub at our 5 Mile pathway, this was a project that came about with the widening of 10 Mile Road. We're north of Eustic, near Rita Husky Park, and just across from the wastewater treatment plant for anyone who's new. So we were offered this 1.5 acre site by ECHD to develop for trail hub amenities, and it's really turned into just kind of a small park. I have a quick note just on this map. I was in a plan review meeting and where I've noted this little place setting, there was an application for a drive-through coffee shop. It didn't have a lot of on-site sit and drink coffee amenities, but I liked the idea of that adjacent to the trail hub and our pathways system, the idea that, yes, we're starting to get some continuity along the pathway, and maybe at some point there are places to stop and grab a coffee and cross back to the trail hub and get back to your car and just sit and have a drink. So things are coming together. This one, our current status, the ACHD cost share elements that were associated with the roadway, including the parking lot and the permeable pavers, those are complete now. At first, I thought I was going to have to go with an old photo, so I have it I have it annotated here. We were able to get and complete the city hardscape portion of the trailhead, the concrete work. I'll show you in just a minute. We've installed some of these straw wattles. Once we got the permeable pavers installed, it occurred to us that it would be really unfortunate if we had a lot of runoff and they filled in before we even got a chance to test them out. So we did a quick fix just to kind of winterize our construction site. Landscape and irrigation, it's designed, bid, and ready to start as early as we can in the spring when it ceases to be too muddy to work. So we have identified a location for a future restroom. I'll just note that here. We're going to bring in a used facility from Centennial Park or the community center as it is now and repurpose that restroom. So we've been, Mike's been helping especially coordinate power installation to serve that facility. And then we've also been planning some public art with Audrey and the Meridian Arts Commission, and I think the timing's going to work out pretty well to get that installed not too long after we're complete. So Shelley was nice enough to run out and take some blue sky photos for us today that show, in fact, the permeable pavers that were installed in the center of the parking lot, and those kind of transition to a bit of a walkway. This will be a public plaza area where we'll be able to integrate art in some way. So yeah, we are set to receive topsoil, do irrigation and planting, poised to go as soon as the weather opens. So the next project is the Fairview Avenue connection. This is also along the 5 Mile pathway, our priority pathway spine. We built this stretch along the 5 Mile Creek a couple of years ago. It was opened. It's wonderful. You get to Fairview and then you wonder, like, is there anywhere to go on? So this is a way of reclaiming a portion of that along the right of way for pedestrians, so that it makes a strong connection. A big part of getting that project off the ground was the need to relocate 5 or 6 existing power poles out of the alignment. They really didn't need to move very far, but they were in our pathway route. So that work is now complete. We've also relocated communications and other utilities. And just this week, we got a note from Idaho Power that they'd be refunding $17,000 to this project. They overestimated a bit what it would cost. So that was essentially the cost we estimated to move 1 power pole. So a bit of good news there, that we're paying a little less than we thought. We have a contractor online to, under contract to get going in the spring. We did a little bit of preliminary survey and work in the fall, but thought that because of the Fairview Avenue location and some traffic control will be necessary, we didn't want to get into a situation where things got torn up and the weather got bad, and then there was an impact to traffic circulation on Fairview. It just seemed complicated. So we thought, okay, we are prepped and ready to go. We did manage to spend some of our necessary CDBG funding, that's community development, block grant funds. So this work got us in good stead on that. So this is another one that's just ready, waiting, and good to go in the spring. We've talked about the South Slough pathway. This is southeast of Ustick and Locus Grove. And there's a really nice long run of new pathway associated with the Verado subdivision. But it kind of comes to a stop here at the end of the subdivision. And because it was relatively easy to obtain an easement from the HOA, we had an idea that we would legitimize this connection out to Locus Grove. And per the terms of our master agreement with Nampa and Meridian, and for those of you who are new, a lot of the great pathways that we have are because we have this agreement with Nampa and Meridian Irrigation District. They allow us to use their easements for pathways. So we like to follow the terms of that agreement and kind of do everything we can to be a good partner with them. So the situation here is that we're essentially, people are getting dumped out onto a facility that does not meet their requirements. There's some water here that would either need to be, in this case, tiled or fenced. So we had initially thought we would bid this whole project because Nampa and Meridian sometimes can partner with us, and we thought they might be able to put the rest of the lateral underground. Turns out they weren't able to do that this season. Our budget predictions were hinged pretty closely on being able to partner for some of that work. So we bid this project, the full connection from Verado out to Locus Grove, and the bids just came in prohibitively high. Nampa Meridian's a great partner. They just couldn't help us out in this case. So we had a complete set of plans, which we'd had to do in order to present this request to Nampa Meridian. So we decided to revise the scope of work and the bid documents to just bid a portion of the project. That way we're providing a legitimate, meaning something that is paved and follows the rules of our agreement out to a public street. And then there is a way through the cul-de-sac to make a pedestrian route out to Locus Grove. So we've rebid it. We've got a contractor within budget, and we're set to start that in the spring too. That'll be putting the the lateral underground and paving some pathway just to make that connection. So an abbreviated project, but we think still an important one, and that is set to go as well. And then another project, and I'm not sure this one is even resting much for the winter. So we're located southwest of Franklin Road and Linder along the 10 Mile Creek or drain. And there was a development agreement several years ago for one of the 12 Oaks projects that required or conditioned pathway and a crossing of 10 Mile Creek, thinking that this is a multifamily kind of planned development, and there might be children who need a safe route to school. So this purple is an on-street route. So the bridge was conditioned in order to make that, to enhance that route, both for school kids getting from apartments to the school, and also just for residents. I mean, it facilitates some good back and forth pedestrian travel if you wanted to walk up to a business and get a Coke or something up on Fairview, and also connect to future pathway planned along the 10 Mile Creek. So that came up, that's been in the works for a long time, and then it came up last year. This private developer was pushing to satisfy that requirement. So we did a fair amount of conferring with Emily and the irrigation district just to figure out what documents do we need to make that happen, coordinating with the HOA and neighboring residents. We essentially had this request to install a bridge, and there was nowhere for it to land. And then there was an easement or an HOA common lot that was usable for a pathway, but it had been encroached upon. This neighbor had a shed that actually was in the middle of where the pathway should go. So there was some communication, and he agreed to relocate the shed, and we helped with some demolition of the slab and fenced off the new route to the landing of the bridge so that the developer could access it, and the bridge is designed. And I haven't been out there for a couple of weeks, but I know the developer was working on setting bridge abutments. And then as soon as that bridge is in and the weather permits, we have plans to complete the stretch of pathway between these two houses, the space that's sort of been reclaimed. I think I'm going to follow Mike's tack and ask if anybody has questions before I go on to new projects in the works. And hearing nothing, I'll just keep going. So when the mayor took office, there was I think there was a real desire to recognize that the community pathways are a huge priority in Meridian. Very important, and wanting to support that, he came to us and said, is there a way that we can, create a big destination pathway or make a big tangible difference? We looked for it. I think the reality in Meridian is that we have the canals, but it is what it is. We don't have something like a Boise River Greenbelt. So our idea, after really scrutinizing our pathways map in terms of land ownership and places where we had missing teeth, so to speak, in the pathway system, we identified 13. Well, Shelley said 14. It kind of depends on, there are a couple that I've lumped together here, but it's more than a dozen of these projects that we felt could make a big impact on connectivity and work within the context that we have going. So as we selected these projects, these were typically pathway connections that weren't likely to be accomplished by the private sector. Again, as a little bit of background, when a new development comes in, and if that development has any interface with our master path or pathways master plan, we require the developer to build the pathway. And so in older areas of town, often there are gaps that don't really have any hope of being built unless the city builds them. We were also looking for simple ownership. We need permission to build these pathways across private properties. So are these easements do they seem relatively simple and achievable in the near term? And then we were also, regardless of project size, big or small, looking to have a strong impact on overall connectivity. So that resulted in this list of 13 projects. I've crossed one out because part of our plan got discouraged by the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District today, but they're all over the city focused on connectivity. So we're looking at a segment west of the trailhead. For those of you who went on our Pathways tour, which is something we do annually just to get out on the system and experience it firsthand. Maybe some of you recall the gap at Meridian Road and Victory where we came off of the canal right of way, and then there was gravel and goat heads, and then we got up to the intersection and ended up riding through sprinklers and over grass. And so, you know, we made our way through, but there was definitely a bit of a hiccup in connectivity there. So that's on the list. It's projects like that. So in order to so yeah, we've got this long list, and how do we accomplish all of those? I mean, normally we have a few going at any one time, and my job includes things other than in-house pathway projects. So we came up with the idea to expand our master services roster at a category for pathway design. This would have slightly different qualifications or ask for different qualifications than we've required just on some of our past projects. So we issued an RFQ, and as a result of that process, we've hired 3 consultant teams to work on small batches of projects. We've essentially divided them up in these 3 teams. So that's moving along. We have task orders, fees, and scopes negotiated for each set of projects. The start has been somewhat staggered. So with the first team that we were able to come to an agreement with, you know, we already have concepts coming back, but our aim with these projects, these 3 different teams, is really to explore feasibility. And we think these projects could be a go, but we're looking to dig a little bit deeper, see if we run into any roadblocks, so that we can, if not, we can move forward with detailed design, formally acquire the easements, and participate in the budget process in terms of projects that we might want to construct in 2022. So we are hoping that you know, a significant number of these will be able to move forward, so that we can deliver kind of a big impact on connectivity. Because it's late and there's a lot going on with pathways, I'm not going to go through every single project. I'm going to highlight a few. If there are any in particular that you're wondering about, or if you'd like to hear about everyone, I'm sure I'll be able to offer an update on how these consulting design projects are going. I'm sure that will happen in the future. So segment D is what we historically called this segment from 10 Mile to Black Cat. So let's see, our trailhead is right here at 10 Mile Road. There's some existing pathway. It's been there for a long time. This is a route we've identified. This historically has been, you know, the city facility and some landowners who didn't want to sell at a price that the city could afford. So there hadn't really been any movement on this, and it really had been a gap in the 5 mile pathway. But recently there was a development application for its Quartet, I believe. They've got a couple going, so I get confused, but so there will be pathway built by that developer, both up the mid-mile collector, out to McMillan, and then along the north side of the 10 mile. We're looking to partner with the developer. They're currently designing a roadway bridge, and we just like a wide facility for a pathway on the edge of that bridge, like we did with ACHD and their roadway widening. So something integrated, but that gives us, you know, a facility that meets our standard. This property has been acquired by ACHD. So we've teamed with, the consultant is looking at, but the crossing of the 9-mile drain, and then a bit of a pathway run. And once we connect this, this is so important because, and again, I'm giving a little bit of a reminder and overview. So we have this basic framework for our pathway system. It looks sort of like a potato running along. But we've got a Meridian Loop pathway, and then we've got 5-mile creek, the 10-mile creek, and it's transected by pathways, but that's kind of an overall framework or to connect pedestrians across the city. So this is a portion, this bigger map of those loops. The magenta is the Meridian Loop. And again, not all portions of that are complete or improved, but we're working toward it. And then this orange highlighted stretch of pathway that runs diagonally, this is our 5-mile pathway. And this has been where we focused most of our efforts lately. There's been a lot of private development out west. This has just been a missing gap for us. So once this can be connected, we get to our trailhead and Rita Husky Park and miles of contiguous pathway that head on toward Eagle Road. And then again, we make this connection. There's actually more of this pathway that should be a solid line indicating built pathway than is on this map. And we get all the way out to the new high school. So just being able to complete this mile really opens up, a greater connected mileage along the 5-mile pathway. So also on the 5, does anybody have any questions? I feel like I'm talking a lot, so I'll pause just a moment. All good? So also on the 5-mile pathway, and I'll give you a little context, is this Woodbridge neighborhood getting on down toward Eagle Road. So this project would propose to connect from existing pathway just southeast of Franklin and Locus Grove. We need to acquire some easements and cross the 5-mile creek, but then there is an existing gravel pathway through the Woodbridge neighborhood. We've done a lot of talking to the HOA representatives already. They were interested in something that's lower maintenance and might be willing to dedicate an easement. So this is a pretty exciting connection just because it's starting to get long. So let's see what else. Oh, and then there's some development applications that have come in for a retirement community here that might allow us to continue along the 5-mile drain. And I just saw a pre-app. It's not a formal application yet, but it was for another property in this area. So there's a lot starting to happen in some areas where previously there hasn't been much action. So we're excited about the 5-mile pathway overall. This is another one of our 13, 14 projects. Commissioner West, this one has your name on it. If you recall, a few years ago, we completed a pathway segment across this county property where Commissioner Nesmith resides. And so we did this Lemp-Larkwood pathway. And now the only remaining stretch along McMillan between Heritage Middle School and the corner is this stretch. So this particular project just seeks to round the corner and then expand some existing pedestrian facilities to our 10-foot wide standard to strengthen that connection north. So, and as most of you are aware, Locus Grove and Linder are the 2 corridors we've identified to focus on to get us north to Chinden and across down to the Boise River Greenbelt and a future park at some point. So that's an example of a smaller segment of project. And then I'm going to give you one more example, the Creason Crossing. And we did just, as I mentioned, meet with Nampa Meridian today, and they seem to think this one would be doable. So that was encouraging news. I know in the past I've gotten calls from the community, from people who, feel like they're close to pathways, but don't necessarily have a good connection. This is the 5-mile pathway that runs along Tully Park. It's the Bud Porter pathway. And so we're seeking to get across the Creason lateral, come through a common area that we've already spoken with some HOAs about, and then connect to the 5-mile pathway and provide, as the crow flies. There are a lot of people who are really close, but we're just hoping to make it easy to get them into the pathway system. So these are examples of the kinds of projects we're looking at. Nothing's been ruled out completely yet, although we're looking at some options. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to entertain any questions. Madam President, I'll just pause.
Anyone have any questions or comments? I look forward to the next Pathways tour so we can check some of those out. Thank you so much, Kim.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, the last thing on our list are staff reports. And I think the only person we haven't technically heard from is Garrett. You guys can decide.
Good evening. Steve stepped out to use the restroom, I believe, real fast, but I can give a staff report for the rec side if you are ready. Right now for the home court, we're wanting to open as soon as possible, as soon as gathering sizes, restrictions and stuff like that raised to about 50 people or less. And that's our game plan right now. In the meantime, staff has had a deep clean of the facility. Like Shelly mentioned earlier, got a few projects done. And for now, they actually are being repurposed out to the parks, getting some park stuff done. Right now, they are helping repair and replace a lot of picnic boards on a lot of our park picnic tables. So they're working with that. Classes and camps right now, classes that can meet the gathering size of 10 or less are happening. They're actually happening at home court and our current community center, as long as they're not sharing equipment and have the ability to social distance. So Jenna is doing a good job at that. She's also began the hiring process for summer staff because a lot of the interview process and the advertisement, things like that takes so long. We need to start the advertisement in January. So she's already started doing that and wanting to hire that for our summer camps. And regarding the summer camp, she's actually started the planning process as well, with regards to field trips, whether we're able to actually take field trips this year or we bring the field trips to the summer camp. So she is working with that. Renee in events, she's basically planning for 2021 with some trying to adapt to what COVID has brought and some changes possibly to some events, but really it's just adaptation around the coronavirus and what we can do when we bring people together. So she's working out that stuff. She's starting to plan the Unplug and Be Outside week based on small gathering sizes and things like that for people to get outside and be active. She's also exploring different ideas regarding movie night and flirting with the idea of a Valentine's special event, community engagement thing. So she's working on that right now. Sports, we're basically waiting for the gathering sizes to increase to where we can do some kind of a volleyball league. In the interim, we're planning for softball and getting ready to go for some softball tournaments this summer, as long as, health restrictions and orders comply with that, we can do it. In kind of the slower time now, because really it's just some of the planning process, Maggie is actually helping Audrey in our arts and culture do some research regarding maintenance plans on public art and things like that. Chelsea with our volunteers is helping out Audrey as well with some GIS mapping of our public arts and things like that. So we can hopefully update the website with some information on that. with sports as well, Skylar is running Cornhole Leagues, and he's getting ready to start a league like Shelly had said earlier in the meeting. That Cornhole League is just booming. So we have to cap it at 40 teams right now. As of, I want to say Monday evening or afternoon, we had 38 teams. So we anticipate to have 40. And we actually have to cap it because of the order that the 10 or less. And we have 2 different sites that we're running that indoors this year. One at Paramount Elementary and one at Meridian Middle School. Meridian Middle School. On top of all that Skylar's doing, he's actually, now I'm kind of passing the field scheduling over to him. He has been doing a great job at scheduling all the fields this summer for all the youth groups that want to use it, from soccer, flag football, to other youth activities. So he's helping out with that quite a bit. And in his downtime, he's actually been repurposed out to parks as well, and helping taking down Christmas lights and doing other miscellaneous items that Roger or Mike have for him in the parks department. Audrey, like I said, has been helping out with a mural series, traffic box stuff, and then actually kind of helping Maggie and Chelsea help out with some of those projects as well, regarding the GIS of the public art and public art maintenance plans. Myself, I've been just last night, the Main Street Market agreement got through council on consent. So that'll happen. Main Street Market wants to start in April. And that'll go all the way through October, every Saturday here at City Hall. So I need to start prepping for that and then getting the temporary use permit set up and turned into the city clerk's department. On top of that, I have the Kleiner Park and Fuller Park RFPs for their concessions. One at Fuller Park is a snow cone shack, and the one at Kleiner is obviously the concessions, full building concessions. I've also been working with the Meridian Youth Baseball Fuller Park agreement with the help of Emily Kane, who is actually on this. And then started looking into the school district agreements, one retaining to J-Bill and the new construction the school's doing over there. It does affect the 2 soccer fields. We're actually losing about half of one of the soccer fields, the soccer field to the east. So we're helping Skylar coordinate with all the user groups that use J-Bill soccer fields and kind of move people around accordingly because of the loss of that half soccer field. We've also been doing some work with the community center and department fees and external events. So with the external events, we're hoping that we can run some events this year in our parks. I met with one on Monday. It's the car show that's happening in June and September. They're hoping and hopeful to have a car show. And so are we, to get back some normalcy. But with that, that's a quick snapshot. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast through that on what the recreation department's been doing.
I don't think that you spoke too fast, but wow, you have a lot going on. Appreciate it. Do we have anyone else for staff reports?
Madam President, I'll jump in. Sorry, I missed my initial cue, and thanks for jumping in, Garrett. And you've heard updates on most of the big ticket items that I would want to provide already. So I'm just going to jump to one last item, and that is related to Lakeview Golf Course, which Mike might have a separate update on. But specifically, I just wanted to touch on the fact that I sent each of you an invitation right before Christmas to sign up and participate in interviews related to the National Golf Foundation's interview process that's ongoing for the master plan out there. And so I just wanted to just plug that and just say I don't have feedback as to how many of you have participated, but I'm hopeful that many of you have. They were trying to do those last week and this week and in early to mid-January. So we're there, but we're very interested in your feedback and what you have to say and add. So I just wanted to plug that, and I think that's it for tonight, and I'll let Mike fill in any gaps there, additional gaps there.
Good plug, Steve. No gaps. Thank you.
Have anyone else? You guys covered a lot of territory tonight, so. Anybody have any questions or comments? Kim, did you have something you wanted to say or?
Madam President, thank you. I don't really, there's always something to add, but that was a pretty comprehensive update. So unless there are questions, I'll take a pass this time around. Thank you.
I guess then I need a motion for adjournment.
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn tonight at 8 p.m. Until our next meeting for February 10th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m.
I second.
Commissioner Bevins seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.